Hello and welcome in this new video where we are basically going to create the look of the land or the material for the ground. Since we are going to create the Earth, we need real-life textures. And the really nice thing that NASA offers a lot of these textures for free for us to use. In the resources folder that comes with this course, beside the Blender projects where you will find all the different projects during this course, you will also have the 4K textures and you will have also the 8K textures. These are the same textures just in different resolution. 4K is more for the wide shots and you can use the 8K if you're going to create a close-up shot of the Earth. And generally, since there is only 5 textures in each folder, it is not a big deal whether you will use the 4K or the 8K. Yes, 8K are heavier for computer to compute, but at the end of the day, they're just 5 textures. So based on that, you can decide. For a close-up, you will use the 8K, and for more of a wide shot, you will use the 4K. In our case, since I'm going to create a wide shot, I'm going to stick to the 4K for now. Unless I notice that I need a higher resolution, at that case, I can swap the textures to 8K. This will be really simple. So now back in Blender, make sure you select your land object, which is the sphere, and I'm going to jump from here, from the timeline, which is the default editor. I need to jump to the shader editor, basically where we create materials. Right here, there are a couple of things that I like to do. Basically, first of all, I'm going to hit N to hide this sidebar to have more space. And also, if I activate this magnet right here, the nodes will be able to stick to the grid, which I find more satisfying. So let's start shading right now. I'm going to call this material land, and I'm going to jump to the rendered view from here. And this is the result we get. It is really boring. The first texture that we will need is a map of the color of the Earth. So in the resources folder, if I go into the 4K textures, you will have Earth color 4K, which is a map of the color of the Earth. So I can easily just drag it and bring it into Blender like this, and I will put it here, and I will take the color and plug it to base color. And boom, as you can see, it is right now on the surface, but it is weirdly mapped. Like, notice that it doesn't look right. In order to fix that, I need to tell Blender how to map this texture on the surface of a sphere. That's why we're going to use a texture coordinate node, which, luckily because we're using the node wrangler add-on, all you need to do is to make sure that you're selecting your texture, which is the Earth color, and hit Ctrl T, and this will add a mapping setup to it. This mapping setup will help you to map the texture on the surface of the sphere. So you can basically change the scale, change the rotation, for example. You can change all of these. In our case, first of all, I'm going to, right now, as you can see, I'm using the UV. I want to change it to object. And once I do this, okay, it looks kind of better, but not quite right yet. That's why in the texture node, you will have here something called flat. And there is an option for sphere. So if I pick sphere, boom. Normally, okay, it's still looking kind of weird. Why is that happening? Okay. I did a small mistake. I need not the object. I need to change it to generated. Yeah, make sure it is generated. And by doing this, as you can see right now, this texture is perfectly mapped on the surface of the sphere. I can always hit 0 to jump back to the camera view. This is what my camera is seeing right now. And it is basically just staring at an empty ocean, except of a small island, a really tiny island right here. I guess this is Hawaii. Either way, this is really boring. I need to rotate this texture. In order to rotate this planet, all you have to do is to select your sphere, and from the object properties right here, or in the viewport, I just prefer using real values, I can start rotating this sphere until I get a look that I'm happy with. Let's say something like so will be good. Yeah, let's leave it at this. You can see Africa right here, Asia right here, but this still looks kind of fake because in real life, for example, the oceans should reflect more light, let's say, and the areas where the land is, it should be slightly rougher and it should have some bumps, and that's where the Earth, land, ocean comes in. It is basically a black and white texture, which will help when it comes to the roughness. So I'm going to take this Earth, land, ocean and bring it into Blender. And I'm going to use the same mapping setup. That's why I'm going to bring these nodes here and connect the mapping node to this. And also make sure you select from flat, make sure to change it to sphere. So it will be mapped the right way onto the surface of the sphere. And we're going to plug the Earth, land, ocean into the roughness. So let's take color and plug it to the roughness. And as you can see, something is happening. But surprisingly, it is not the right thing that should happen. Here's why. Another handy shortcut that you can use with the Node Wrangler add-on is the Control Shift and click on a node to see exactly what it does. As you can see, this is how our Earth, Land, Ocean look like. Black will mean a value of 0, and white will mean a value of 1. So let's think about it. We plug this to the roughness. So what is the roughness value for ocean? Should it be 1 or should it be 0? The surface of the ocean is not rough. It needs to be a value of 0. As you can see in the texture, it is white, which means a value of 1. So we need to invert this map to tell Blender that, hey, we want these areas to be 1 because they are rough, because they are the land, and we want these areas that are white to be black because that represents 0 and they're not rough, a roughness of 0. So let's invert this texture. Go Shift A, hit S for search, and let's look for invert color. Let's put it right here for a second, and let's get back to looking at our principal BSDF. Control Shift and click on it, and we're back to our usual view. Let's plug this here, and boom, something that happened, and this right now looks right. If I just hit Control Shift on the invert node, right now it is perfectly the way we want it. The rough areas are white, which are the land, and the black areas are 0, which are the ocean, because it is not rough. And let's click on the principal BSDF to get back to our usual view. And you can also hit 0 from the number pad to get back to the camera view. And now to the last texture that we will add, which is basically some sort of a bump to this map, because as you can see, everything is flat, even though the surface of the earth does have some height variations, let's say. And that's where this topography map will comes in. So make sure to bring it into Blender, and let's put it here, and make sure to connect it to this node. And here's another handy shortcut. If you hit Alt with the right mouse button and drag over two nodes that you want to connect, you will be able to connect them. Alt, right mouse button, and drag over these two nodes. You will have this red box to help you, and boom, I will be able to connect them. This shortcut is really helpful when you have really far nodes from each other. And also make sure to change the mapping from here from flat to sphere so that it will look right. Control Shift and click on color, and boom, this is a topography map. But how can we use it? We're going to use this map as a displacement, which will basically create some bumps on the surface of the earth. And when it comes to displacement, we need to plug it to the displacement output, or actually to the displacement input right here. But there is a problem. This is a yellow socket and this is a vector. So we need to transform this data from the colored data into a vector. And we can do this using a displacement node. So go Shift A, S for search, and let's look for displacement. And let's add it right here. And I'm going to take the color and plug it into the height, and take the displacement and plug it to displacement. Nothing is happening because we're still looking at the topography map. So we need to get back to our usual view by Control Shift and clicking on the principal BSDF. And as you can see, something is definitely happening. But for whatever reason, these bumps are not real. It still looks flat, because by default Blender will not displace the geometry. By default it will fake that. So we need to tell Blender that, hey Blender, we want you to actually do some real displacement, to change the geometry. To do that, you need to jump to the material settings, make sure you are in the land material, and if you scroll down under settings, you will have here an option called bump only. Displacement bump only means that Blender will do some sort of fakery to fake the look of actual displacement. This is not what we want. We want to change it from bump only to displacement and bump. And as you can see, something is happening right now, and we're changing the underneath geometry of the sphere. But the effect right now is really strong, so we need to deal with that. And this will be really simple because we can play with the settings of this displacement node right here. The first thing, which is the mid-level, which point the displacement is calculated. Is it from the bottom or is it from the top? In our case, it is computed in the mid-level, which is the middle. We want to change it to 0, so it is computed from the ground level up. All we need to do right now is to just play a little bit with the scale. So let's try 0.1. Let's see, this is still way too strong. So let's try 0.05. This is more or less still pretty strong. So let's try 0.01. This is starting to look kind of better, but I don't know, is it really that strong or not? It is still pretty strong. So let's try 0.001. Yeah, this is more like it, I think. This is better. Because in general, yes, mountains are huge and all of that, but when you start looking from the space, they start to lose their glory. They are more or less flat. But either way, for now, I'm going to leave it the way it is. We might get back in the future to change these values and tweak them a little bit to get a better look. But as for now, we're good to go. And by doing this, we finished our land material. As you can see, it is pretty simple. Maybe you can organize it just so that you can use it in the future. So these are our textures, and we did this really simple displacement setup to add more depth to this earth. And we can always hit 0 to jump back to the camera view to see exactly the result we got. And you can also hit the home screen to fit the render in this small window. This is basically it for this video on how to create the material for the land, and I will see you in the next video where we are going to actually add some clouds to this, which will make it look even more realistic. So I will see you everyone in the next video. And also, as usual, make sure to save your file.